11. Forced relocation. The path is not a creation of any mortal kind, not even the Chow, at the height of their strength could effect such a change to our world. No, the path descended from above, and it has illuminated the way forward for the world ever since. The path sees no race, color or creed, it embraces all and in return all must embrace it. The path is our road to ascension, to a greater state of being. The system will uplift us, but only if mortal kind is united will we be able to pursue the path to its final destination. Excerpt from the Holy Book of the Path. Yesterday was a little too hectic for my tastes, I have to say. It's my dearest wish that today will be a little more calm. My only aim is to try and secure one more biomass so I can mutate my eyes to +3 and then perhaps relocate my nest to a location a little more distant from the surface. However, it doesn't appear as if my day is going to as peaceful as I'd hoped. Why on earth are there all these soldiers out here? When I emerge from my nest and move into the cavern, there are already human soldiers everywhere. They are moving systematically around the cavern, luring monsters out of their side tunnels and exterminating them with superior force. From my position huddled on the ceiling in the shadows, I can see they've established some sort of formation around the water pool. Wooden tripods extend over the water surface, and hanging from each is some sort of crystal or device that appears to be absorbing light from within the water. What on Pangea is this fancy technology? What are they absorbing? What are these funky crystals? More importantly, how am I getting out of here alive? The cavern has been completely occupied by them. Even if I try and rely on my stealth, I've already seen the monster detecting equipment they have available. I'd be stupid to think I could sneak past, and even if I could, there is only the large tunnel down halfway up the tunnel for me to head to, but that is clearly how they are going to advance further into the dungeon. Can I hide in my nest successfully? No, I don't think so. When they see all the dirt I've shifted into the tunnel, they may even realize that it's the work of a monster and start to clear it out. Possibly they already have knowledge of that tunnel and will realize something is off when they notice the dirt obstruction. In that case, what the hell am I supposed to do? Stupid humans. There is only one option left available to me, but that choice is almost certain death. I have to escape past my nest and further into the tunnel towards the area I saw my first croca beast. Isn't this a classic case of out of the frying pan and into the waiting jaws of doom? As I cling to the shadows near the entrance to my tunnel, the disciplined soldiers are already beginning to sweep around to my side of the pool, waving torches to illuminate shadows and identify every stray nest and tunnel that may be hiding. I haven't got much time left before they make their way to my tunnel. Why do these soldiers need to work so hard? Take a break, guys. Relax. No. Damn it. I've no choice. Time to face the music death. Moving quickly, I skitter back into my tunnel and make my way to my nest. My heart pangs a little as I crawl through the small gaps I left on the ceiling and leave my temporary lodgings behind. This was my place of somewhat safety in this world, my only refuge. It was only for a few days, nest, but we had good times. If I'd had a few of my fellow ant bros to stay with me, it would have been a real home. You know what? If I could find my birth nest, then that may be the safest place for me. I've already seen the kind of reception I get from surface society in this world. It wasn't great, so maybe it's time I try and get along with my own kind. Ant kind. After all, how far away from my nest could I possibly have been dragged before I was born? The nest may be closer than I think. Stay positive, Anthony. Charge forth and find the queen. That is to say, Mum. However, I will do so in a safe way, without being seen, I hope. I emerge out of my nest and into the unexplored side of this tunnel. I haven't been out here since the first day I awoke in this place and saw one of my brethren being chomped to death by a horrible, bipedal crocodile. Things have changed a little since then though. I'm level 2 now, have a few biomass points spent. I'm not as weak as I was. I latch onto the roof tightly with all 6 of my claws and begin to carefully make my way forward. My antennae are waving in all directions and my eyes are staring hard at every shadow as I advance. Is it just me, or does the tunnel seem brighter than it did last time? I swear the veins along the wall are glowing more brightly and are pulsing with slightly more frequency than they did before. What is that? Gingerly, I approach the corner around which I saw my first monster. I have serious trauma about this place, damn it. Please no monster, please no monster. I sneak a peek and thankfully there is nothing to see. Phew. Casting my eyes around, I can't see any signs of the ant who was eaten here or the beast that did the eating. For now the tunnel seems to continue to a wide curve to the left my right since I'm upside down. I can also tell, perhaps, that this is my tunnel sense kicking in, that the tunnel is slowly starting to slope downwards, away from the surface and further underground. This is fantastic news. Take me away from the cursed surface and its nasty human armies. I once again advance boldly whilst sneaking the entire time. Wait. My antennae are starting to pick up something in the air. Only 100 meters further into the tunnel I sense a change in the air. Very quickly it becomes apparent why. The tunnel splits into two paths. Using all of my senses I try to determine if one path is safer than the other. I can't see anything nearby, and despite wiggling with all their strength my antennae aren't picking up anything either. I'm not happy about this setup. One of these tunnels could mean instant death. Both of these tunnels could mean instant death. I can't hold back any longer. Do you wish to improve antennae? This will cost 2 biomass. Do it. Booga. I can't even try and scrape at my itch right now since I'm trying to stay hidden. Why are you like this, Gandalf? Eventually it passes and my antennae have now grown noticeably longer than they were before I upgraded them the first time. With my new and improved senses I again try to determine if either of these choices is less death insistent than the other. Hold on. What the heck is that? My whole ant body starts tingling as I grasp the faintest wisp of a scent from the left tunnel. There is something about this scent that speaks to me. What on earth could it be? Drawn by this sensation, I will choose the left tunnel. Whatever this is, it doesn't feel threatening to me, so I will investigate. I really have no other information to go on anyway. Disregarding the right tunnel I move into the left, sticking to the ceiling and moving cautiously as always. As I move forward the subtle smell becomes more and more noticeable. From a distant waft of a mist it has now grown to the strong tendrils of a smoke. The walls of this tunnel are almost entirely stone, webbed with the now familiar branching lines of blue light that seem to permeate almost everywhere inside this place. My claws make soft scratching noises as I grasp the rock in my tiny claws, supporting my body with 4 legs at all times as I reach forward with 2. I'm still not a fully coordinated ant, but I'm making a lot of progress in this body, if I do say so myself. To go from 4 limbs to 6 isn't easy at all, but to go from 2 legs, 2 arms to 6 legs, no arms is even greater a shift. It only takes a few minutes before I locate the source of the scent. But there isn't anything here. Confused I glance around. There definitely isn't anything. The tunnel continues to curve to the left and slightly down, but there I cannot see any bodies or creatures of food of any kind. I use my antennae to feel the stone in front of me and gradually follow the scent down off the roof and onto the floor of the tunnel. As my antennae tip-tap here and there, suddenly I am zapped with inspiration. Pheromones. How do ants keep in contact without being able to speak? How do ants create those long trails away from the nest to sources of food? The answer is pheromones. By using a pheromone gland they can lay a trail of scent for other ants to detect and follow. Something is telling me that this is a pheromone trail laid down by a scout ant seeking either food or perhaps trying to locate the stolen brood from the nest. My people are calling me home. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 12. The Trail. This is an exciting development. The colony is calling me, lighting the beacon to bring long-lost Anthony home. Still, let's not get carried away. Remember what happened the last time you got carried away, Anthony? You still haven't returned to max HP. After inspecting the source of the scent on the tunnel floor, I immediately move back to my comfortable stealth position on the ceiling and continue down the tunnel. I'll have to continue down this path until I can pick up the trail somewhere. The tunnel itself is becoming more irregular in direction, zigging and zagging through the earth, even as it continues its downward slope. As I move I'm beginning to feel vibrations in the air from down the tunnel. Something is definitely happening in front of me. I must proceed with all caution. 30 meters ahead the tunnel splits once again. I'm starting to feel that these tunnels and caves are going to be splitting into a very messy network of tunnels. This is going to be hard to keep track of. Tunnel sense has reached level 2. This is what I'm counting on. According to its description, this skill helps maintain a sense of direction whilst underground. I suspect because of this effect I've been able to know which way the tunnel is sloping or curving almost without having to think about it. I'll have to depend on this to help me navigate and remember which way is which. Since I can't detect any pheromone trail from either tunnel and one seems no safer than the other, I decide place a mark in the ceiling right at the split which indicates which direction if have taken. If I create and maintain a simple set of symbols to mark the tunnels, it will hopefully help my memory. After scraping a simple arrow into the rock with my mandibles, I move down the right-hand path. 10 minutes later I have returned to the juncture. Well then, not going down that way anytime soon. It hadn't taken long for me to discern something was wrong with that tunnel, and without having to travel far I encountered an area wherein the tunnel widened slightly, creating a sort of hollow that had been occupied for a group of wolf lizards. 5 of them were lounging on the rocks, gnawing on bones of what appeared to be recently killed prey. I wasn't prepared to try and sneak past them, so I turned my tail and returned. What symbol should I use for instant death? In the end I scratch a rough X for danger and a tilde shape next to my mark for the right tunnel to try and represent the wolf lizard tail before marking the left tunnel and moving into it. Hopefully this path is a little more manageable. After a few hundred meters the tunnel seems quite safe, almost pleasant, as tunnels go. Hold it. I freeze in the process of walking, one foreleg poised in the air to advance as I stare hard at the space in front of me. Is this what I think it is? Before me I can see, barely see, a thin, silvery line of delicate thread stretched taut across the tunnel. Very gently I bring my leg back towards my body and place it down before taking a few steps back and examining what I see in front of me. Without having +2 eyesight there is no way I would have been able to notice in time. Reflecting the soft blue light of the rock walls there is a web of whisker-thin strands stretched across the tunnel. I had been so close to walking headfirst into a welcome I would not have survived. Monster spider. I shiver. I can't help but feel indignant. Stupid spiders. You think you're the king of the insect world. Huh. You let your webs do all the hard work for you. Not an honest, straightforward worker like an ant. If I had 200 of my kind here, boy you'd have to watch out. After inspecting carefully I can't see any spider on this web, but that doesn't mean it isn't nearby. I hesitate. I either have to move through this tunnel or back to the family of wolf lizards and try and sneak through. Since I don't like my odds of sneaking I may have to try and gather some information about this spider monster to make an informed decision on the best path forward. After some consideration I move to the floor of the tunnel and gather up a few loose rocks. I practice using my mandibles to toss them a short distance. The hard impact sound of rock on rock echoes through the tunnel. I get the hang of it pretty quickly and line up a few rocks close to the web. Swinging my head I lob a rock at the web. The stone impacts the strands, causing the entire web to shake, but it doesn't stick and falls to the ground. Without waiting I throw a second one and then turn and scurry away to hide in the shadows to observe. At first, nothing happens. The shaking of the web makes it much easier to see, a neat pattern covering the whole of the tunnel's width. Eventually the motion stops, but still, I wait. Here it comes. I almost missed it at first since it was moving on the ceiling, the show off. One leg and then the next emerges from the shadows as the monster appears to inspect the prey that shook its web. This thing is hideous. 8 furry legs, clearly too many, support its fat bulbous body as it moves forward and begins to daintily touch and examine the web. Now as I recall it, a spider is an arachnid, not an insect like me. I have 3 body segments, head, thorax and abdomen, and 6 legs, whilst a spider has 8 legs, yuck, and 2 body segments, head and abdomen. This spider is not part of the mighty insect family, he's lower on the food chain. Looking closely, it appears to be roughly my size as well. It's possible this is not a high-level monster. The spider begins to move off the rock and onto the web itself, inspecting the strands more closely. An idea is beginning to form in my mind. Let's just wait a little for our many-legged friend to sit still for us. The spider is moving slowly across the web, still trying to determine the cause of the disturbance. Meanwhile I am carefully pointing my rear at the target, trying to accurately judge the distance. Hold, fire. Pow. I blast out a mighty shot of acid, trying to force the attack at my maximum range. Immediately after letting the acid fly, I begin to change locations and watch the target to see the effect of my artillery. At this range the accuracy was a little lacking, and rather than hitting the spider straight on the abdomen as I'd hoped, the acid sprays across the legs on the right side. The spider reacts immediately, flailing around at incredible speed. Loathsome fangs are bared, dripping dark fluid as the beast turns this way and that, its many eyes glaring into the tunnel as it attempts to locate its antagonist. This is something the spider clearly has over me. Even upgraded, my eyesight is probably no match for the natural eyes of a spider. Most spiders have up to 8 eyes. As solitary hunters they need excellent senses, much for the same reason I do. The stealth skill is currently displaying its strength as my foe seems unable to identify my location. Perhaps I was able to catch it unawares, the creature's attention focused on the web rather than observing the tunnel. I watch the movements of my target like a hawk. After scrambling for a while, the spider calms down and moves defensively to the side of the web, near the walls, watching the tunnel carefully. I can see its eyes gleaming slightly in the tunnel light. It clearly thinks it has hidden carefully. Stupid spider. I've been watching you all along. And now you are perfectly still. Moving slowly, oh so slowly, I turn and prepare to fire a second shot. Take into account the elevation and angle, no breeze to worry about, think of the arc. Fire. I turn just in time to see my acid shoot over the spider's head and spray onto its abdomen, sticking and clinging to the monster's hairy body. I can hear an audible hiss of pain from the spider as once again it thrashes and charges about behind its web, trying to find me. But I am long gone. Once I confirm the hit I put the jets on and run the heck out of there. Chase me if you want, you dumb spider. If you're brave enough to leave your web, that is. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 13 Insect greater than arachnid. Despite my tough talk I was shivering inside my own carapace as I waited to see if the spider would pursue me into the tunnel. I retreated all the way to the junction, thinking that if worst came to worst I could hide close to the wolf lizards or aggro them onto the spider and try to slip through their den. Fortunately this spider appears to be as cautious as me. And why not? All he has to do is sit inside his web and wait for the prey to be delivered, stuck and unable to fight. Practically free biomass. Truly, being a spider is like easy mode in this dungeon. My resentment is building towards this web-spinning noob. Thinking of all the hardships I've been through whilst this chump is sitting here collecting free XP. My rage is reaching towards the sky, to the very heavens themselves. To ease my fury, the spider must die. Of course, I only consider this course of action since I have weighed the odds and I think I can win. There are a few reasons for this. Firstly, the tunnel is unusually bright, so spotting the spider and its web is not as hard as it would have been just after I arrived in the dungeon. Secondly, the spider appears to be small, possibly as weak, stats-wise, as I am. If I can remove the natural advantage it gains from its web, I can win. That only question is, how can I ensure I never fight it in its web? Phase 1 is already complete. With my 2 acid attacks yesterday I can presume that the spider has lost at least 5 HP. Unless it can secure food to replenish its strength I will continue to attempt to lure it to where I can attack it from range. Simple. The weakness to my plan is that I need to ambush the spider a number of times in order to be victorious. However, if the spider can ambush me even once with its poison fangs. Lights out. Antennae, forward, eyes, open, brain, focus to a razor's edge. There must be no mistakes. Moving in this way I advance towards the web once more, inspecting every stone and fold in the rock for hidden arachnids. No sign of it, however. The horrid thing is probably licking its wounds behind the safe walls of its web, provided it has a tongue. Since I can't see it, I will process as I did before, trying to lure the fiend here by disturbing the web. As I did before, I prepare some choice stones and line them before flicking them one by one into the web. I use 4 stones this time, trying to create a larger disturbance to convince the creature a juicy prey has become entangled. I quickly hide in a shady position and prepare to wait. And I wait. And wait. Half an hour goes by without any seeing even one hairy leg. Not coming out yellow or too chicken to fight face to face like a man. This is also fine. First however, I need to be sure. One again I prepare some stones, line them up and flick them into the web using my mandibles. I ramp up to 7 stones this time, the web shakes and wobbles under my rocky assault. Once more I retreat and observe. Come at me, spider. Still, nothing. The tunnel is perfectly still and quiet, not even a whisper echoes off the stone. I learned during my first hunt that patience is everything to a monster. Death lurks around every corner, no safeguards can afford to be cut. If this spider wants to play a waiting game with me, I'm game. I wait an hour before I make my move. The spider is either more wounded than I initially thought or is too wary to approach this side of its nest after getting an acid bath last time. I must move on to phase 2 of my web disruption plan. Using my antennae, I find an area of softer, looser stone and begin to shift it close to the web using my trusty face hands, otherwise known as mandibles. Once I have enough finer material, I begin flicking it up onto the web, sending it wafting and shivering once more. Unlike the heavier stones I was using before, this stuff doesn't get the web really shaking, but it does do something the heavier rocks couldn't. It sticks. Flick, flick, flick. Again and again I send the fine stone into the web where some of it rebounds and falls, and some if it impacts the threads, remaining hanging in the air. I don't need to cover all of the web, just enough for me to be able to pass through without being stuck. Then I will be able to infiltrate the inner sanctum of my foe. When I'm halfway done, I take another opportunity to retreat and hide, just in case the spider has at last been drawn out by my constant interfering with its web. 30 minutes later and I'm back at work. Since the spider refuses to emerge, I try to cover as much of the web as I reasonably can from the ground with as thick a coating as I can. If I get a leg stuck to this damned web, I may not be able to free myself. Eventually I'm satisfied enough that I'm willing to try and squeeze through. Being as careful as I can, I pass my antennae across each strand I plan to walk past, checking for residual stickiness. Finding none, I pass through in the lair of the beast. This is the most dangerous phase of this conflict. Although I have secured a path of retreat, here in the creature's lair, there could be any number of hidden threads. I must be careful. Foothold by foothold I creep forward, my eyes scanning every inch of wall and ceiling. A single lapse of concentration will be deadly here. I try to be as stealthy as I can, but dark, shadowed areas are becoming harder and harder to find. The flowing blue light that runs through the walls of the tunnels has definitely become stronger over the last few days. At least this is trouble that runs both ways, although I can't hide very well, neither can my opponent. Here inside the nest of the spider I can see threads running along the walls and floor here and there, some of them so fine they barely catch the light. I hesitate with almost every step, trying to be certain I don't place a foot wrong. What's that? I can see a shape over there, close to the wall. I can't be sure though. Is it a fold in the rock, or is it a leg? Take this, you bastard. Like lightning I blast off a shot of acid. Acid shot has reached level 3. Ha, must have been a hit. Only one thing to do now. That's right, run for it. Biwahahaha. You won't catch me, spider. I'm like the wind across the fjords, like the gazelle leaping across the plains, like the falcon soaring in the clear skies. Bah, a thread. I'm stuck. It's got me, it's coming to get me. Will I die here, before even meeting my colony? I have so many regrets. I'm too young to die. Come to think of it, I'm not even 1 month old. You have defeated level 1 poor Arania. You have gained XP. Please don't kill me, spider. I have so much to live for. I still don't know if I can evolve like a pocket monster. How cool would that be? You don't want me to die before I find out, do you? And. What? Turning around I can see that one of my legs has brushed a spider thread on the ground. By pulling hard I'm able to break free. Once liberated I return to where the spider was sighted, only to see the small creature, severely burned by acid, lying on its back presenting its curled legs to the ceiling. I'm sorry, spider. I misjudged you. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 14 The Express Lane. You have consumed a new source of biomass. Poor Arania, you are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the poor Arania unlocked. You have gained 1 biomass. Poor Arania. Child spider. A newly born spider monster, relies on its web to secure prey. I feel great shame. Clearly the rage I directed at this spider, the contempt I felt for it growing fat on biomass behind its cozy web was very misplaced. This is a level 1 baby spider monster. It's possible it never managed to consume any biomass at all. How pitiful. Your existence is so pitiful. We won't talk about your end. I'm sorry, young spider. After my first 2 blasts of acid, the spider was already heavily wounded. Without any way to recover the damage caused by my acid, its pitifully small health pool had shrunk to almost nothing. When I entered the nest to continue the battle, it was already on the edge of death. My last shot was enough to defeat it. Being only level 1, I'm sure the experience I've gained isn't much, but by consuming it the taste was as you could imagine. I have gained 2 more biomass. Once again, eyes plus 3 is within my reach. With my vision finally in a non-life threateningly sucky state, I'll be able to concentrate on other aspects of my body. Maybe then I'll be able to actually fight something. Wishful thinking. I suck. I have to find out how I can grow into at least an adult ant. Perhaps I need to achieve more levels. Before that can happen I need to locate a place I can hunt. Having consumed the unfortunate arachnid I have at least secured a path forward, so I've little choice but to continue on my journey. I use broken rocks and dust in order to break through the web on the other side of the nest and squeeze myself between the threads once more. Enter stealth mode. Scrabbling back to the ceiling I move cautiously down the tunnel once more. It isn't long before I find something new. A shaft plunging straight down into the dark. Directly in the middle of the tunnel the floor drops away instantly and before me is a hole, 4 meters in diameter that I cannot see the bottom of, despite the winding light threads that twist through the rock walls. How far down does this thing go? The tunnel I'm in keeps continuing forward, so once again I am left with a choice. If I assume that deeper means more dangerous, then I should leave my exploration of this shaft for later. I still take time to sniff the edge of the hole carefully with my antennae, seeking any sign of the trail. Nothing. I'm a little disappointed but at the same time a little relieved. I'd rather not have to pursue the trail deeper into these tunnels if I could avoid it, but since going higher in the tunnels isn't safe either, due to the threat of painful death by human, going deeper may be the smarter option. Gah, my head hurts. I will have to explore all options in the end probably. No need to keep thinking about it. Onward. Passing over the shaft opening I proceed further down the tunnel, warily scanning as I do so. After 20 minutes I encounter another development. It turns out my small tunnel connects to a much larger one, similar to the cavern I was in before. This large passage is at least 30 meters wide and 20 meters high. Sitting at the opening to my small tunnel I can already see other small tunnel openings breaking off from this main passage. I know what this means. More monsters. I can already see a few prowling between rock formations and I can hear even more. I wonder if this passage links back to the first cavern I was in. Have I just done a wide loop and reconnected to the very passage I was trying to get away from? I have to be careful. First things first, I retreat back into the smaller tunnel and start searching for a section of soft dirt I can use to dig. I have to move back about 100 meters but I find a section of wall I can work with. Next I begin to construct a nest once more, opening a hole in the tunnel wall and removing the chunks of dirt and rock to block off the tunnel. I just don't feel safe unless I can put even a very flimsy layer of protection around myself. It takes a few hours but I excavate a cozy, dark nest and manage to block off the tunnel towards the new cavern, leaving my small opening on the ceiling to allow my passage. Also, digging has reached level 4. Even if it is a fairly useless skill, it feels good to grow and improve. When I think about it, I'm already a vastly improved little monster than I was when I started. My senses are sharper, my acid stronger and my skills have improved. I'm still pathetically weak in combat, I know that, but still. Let me be proud of myself. Nest site secured. Time for a nap. To explore new terrain and possibly hunt, I need to be sharp, so I decide to get some rest in first. I flop my hard carapace down, with my legs splayed out. I can't actually shut my eyes, since I have no eyelids. It's a little weird, to say the least. Since I raised insects in the past I know that ants don't actually sleep, but basically stay still and rest for a while. It's a state called torpor. As I stay still and unmoving I gradually drift into a fuzzy state of half attention. All stimuli fades into a background noise and my mind slowly drifts away from my senses. Getting some shut-eye, without actually shutting my eyes. Sometime later I shake myself awake and pull my legs under me, ready to stand and venture forth. My mind is refreshed. Peak performance has been reached. It's time to explore. There are 2 things I'm concerned about right now. Firstly, I want to try and secure 1 more biomass so I can improve my eyesight once more. Once that has been achieved I won't try and amass 4 more points to achieve +4 but start to upgrade the rest of my body. With more powerful legs, carapace, mandibles and acid gland I'll feel a lot more comfortable exposing myself when hunting. Secondly, I need to secure more XP. With more levels I may be able to increase my stats or progress into an adult ant, which may increase my chances of survival greatly. I also have a plan to try and secure more experience safely. Hopefully I'll be able to try it out in this cavern. As long as there is enough monsters, I think I will. I emerge into the large tunnel and quickly take shelter amongst the rock formations on the ceiling. My stealth has long reached level 3. Hopefully I can raise it further by shadowing some monsters in here. Looking back and forth, I can tell that to my left the cavern slopes gradually upwards as it curves into the distance. I can't help but worry that this tunnel is the path that extended from the cavern I was in before. Have I circled around just to put myself directly in front of the soldiers again? It seems as though this area of dungeon mostly consists of these larger, main tunnels with small ones branching and twisting off in all directions, creating spaces for smaller monsters to exist and group together. So the large tunnels are the highways and the smaller ones are the backstreets. Something like that. Sweeping my antennae, I move towards the downward sloping side. Tunnel sense has reached level 3. So trying to decide direction and map the tunnels in my mind is leveling my tunnel sense. Feels a little weird to think the system is able to monitor my thoughts. Well, skill levels is something that can only help for now. Hopefully somewhere in this direction I'll be able to find what I'm looking for. I've noticed 2 new types of monster in this area already. The first is like a large rat but with 3 tails, each one tipped with a spike of some sort. Absolutely don't want to mess with that guy. The second is a mollusk-looking creature, its long slimy body coated with organic-looking spines of bright colors, almost like coral growing directly from the creature's back. Something to consider about this thing is that it is at least twice my size and is clearly capable of moving on the walls, since I've seen 2 of them sliding up vertically already. I hate slug-like things. Yuck. They don't appear to able to move very quickly, but I would be shocked if these brightly colored bros weren't poisonous in some way. I'll avoid their trails as well, just in case. Aha, I'm starting to hear the sweet sound I've been hoping for. Growls of beasts and the gnashing of claws are starting to happen further ahead. Onward, with the speed of Shadowfax. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 15 How to Last High. This world contains a bizarrely game-like system. The information I'm in need of most is exactly how this system functions. For example, how does the system award XP when a monster dies? Is it divided evenly amongst everything that caused damage? Or is all of the experience awarded to the one who deals the final blow? I've never received a system announcement awarding experience during combat, only after the prey has expired. So I can assume that only when something dies is XP awarded for it. Let's test a few theories then. As I draw near, the sounds of combat are growing louder and louder. Sticking to the shadows, I peer around the rock crevices to identify the combatants. Locked in furious battle, I see 4 of the filthy claw centipedes and a croca beast. By the shining beard of Gandalf, I hate those stupid centipedes, they think they're so great. The 4 crawling monstrosities have surrounded the much larger, hulking, walking croc, advancing and retreating to distract their foe and create chances for the others. The croca beast is doing its best to watch all of its opponents, but they are simply too slippery, always moving, circling and feinting. The beast has already been wounded in several places. Green ichor can be seen leaking from wounds on the creature. It isn't going down without a fight though. 1 centipede already lies twitching at its feet, completely torn in half. Slash. Bite. The monsters whirl in deadly combat, swinging claws and chomping fangs. This is quite thrilling. I try to keep an eye on my surroundings, however. The last thing I want is one of those stupid slugs to slide up and eat me when I'm not looking. Surprisingly, it seems as though most monsters are giving this fight a wide berth, unwilling to get dragged into a fight between such dangerous opponents. I'm happy to chip in, however. The croca is snapping its jaws towards 1 centipede whilst using its claws ward of the others. Its tail swings furiously behind it, trying to defend its vulnerable back as it turns. Suddenly it coils up, crouching low. This is it. I hurriedly turn and begin to take aim, and as the croca launches itself forward at one of its tormentors, I fire a blast at one of the centipedes, drenching the foul thing in my acid. As quickly as I can, I re-aim and fire another shot at the croca itself, splashing the burning liquid down its left side. By this time the giant croc has already clamped its jaws shut on its victim. Swinging its massive head from side to side, it snaps repeatedly down, audibly crunching the exoskeleton of the centipede that writhes and twists madly in the death grip. However, in leaping forth so boldly, the croca has left itself open to retaliation. The remaining 3 centipedes, including the victim of my sneak attack, leapt forth, unwilling to let this chance slip. By taking advantage of the certain death of their comrade, they plunge forward with wriggling glee, sinking fangs and claws into the croca beast, tearing away at their prey. One of the centipedes rears up the end of its body, displaying a spike which it flips forward and drives into the croca's back, surely injecting some form of poison. The larger monster roars in rage and with a massive swing of its head snaps the centipede in half, flinging pieces away into the darkness, before turning on the remaining pests. However, with my acid burning it and the poison in its system, it's moving slower and slower. The 3 surrounding centipedes withdraw from the monster, circling at range, waiting for the poison and damage already done to wear down their prey. The target of my attack has withdrawn further than the others, playing extra defensive as it hisses and clacks at the surroundings, unsure where the hidden foe lies. Hey. Over here. Once more I fire a burst at that centipede, splashing it squarely on the tail. The creature shrieks and squirms about, clacking fiercely as it attempts to locate my hiding place with its beady eyes. No such luck, Pinchy. I normally wouldn't act so brazenly, but with their hunt almost successful and the threat of surrounding monsters joining in, I doubt the centipedes would be so foolish as to abandon their prey to try and hunt for me. So once again I nestle into the shadows and prepare to watch how things play out from the safety of the ceiling. The croca beast is heavily wounded now. Air rasps between its massive jaws as it struggles for air. The eyes of the beast are still alive with fury, however, and the centipedes give due respect to their monstrous opponent and continue to wait it out, retreating slightly every time the beast steps forward. My victim is moving slower now, clearly wounded. It refuses to back too far away from the croca beast, but also remains close enough to claim its stake. The croca is close to finished now, unable to put up much of a fight. Every breath is a labor at this point. Its blurry eyes lock onto its final target, the wounded centipede I have attacked. Dash. With the last of its strength, the monster hurls itself forward, desperate to bring down even one more enemy as it goes. The wounded centipede darts to one side as the others once again close in on the beast from behind, but the acid has burned away for too long. The waiting game the centipedes played has weakened the croca significantly, but it has also worked in my favor, allowing my acid to slowly burn and accrue damage. It's just enough of a hindrance that the beast is able to land a vicious swipe with its claws. Slash. The centipede reels back from the blow but doesn't fall. Combined with the acid attacks from earlier, the centipede is clearly heavily wounded now. This was the final burst of strength from the wounded croca. Immediately after the furious attack, it collapses to the floor, spent of all its energy. My heart pounds in my tiny ant thorax. This is perfect. Once the unharmed centipedes close in on their prey to deliver the finishing blow, I once again take aim. This is the last of my acid for the time being. This shot has to count. Pow. Once again my acid fires true, straight onto the wounded centipede. My victim contorts its body as the hateful acid burns away at it once again. For some reason I have very little sympathy for these clawed centipedes. Hopefully not just because they look so hideous. I like to think I'm not that shallow. The 2 healthy centipedes turn to inspect their heavily wounded comrade before turning back to the now collapsed croca beast and finishing it off. As the large monster breathes its last breath, I tense slightly. No system announcement. I didn't receive any XP, even though I damaged it. This means that being part of a successful fight isn't enough, only the last blow matters. You have defeated level 3 Unguibus Scolopendra. You have gained XP. You achieved level 3. 1 skill point awarded. Speaking of which, even though the fearsome blow from the croca beast surely dealt 80% of the damage to the centipede, I am the one who reaps the reward as my acid has claimed the final hit. Muahahahaha. The final 2 centipedes seem scarcely bothered by the loss of another ally. One of them immediately scuttles towards a nearby wall and darts into a side tunnel as the other centipede circles the beat carcass, clacking and hissing at the surroundings, defending the biomass. It isn't long before another 5 centipedes burst out into the main tunnel and quickly surround the prize. One centipede even crawls over and seizes the remains of the one I defeated and starts dragging it back towards their nest. Oi! You dirty thief! I curse your father! I glare down at them from my hiding place on the roof.
Stealth has reached level 5, upgrade available. Oh ho. The great Gandalf has bestowed his wisdom upon mine head. So supple his facial hair. So aggressive his eyebrows. I'll have to investigate this upgrade a little later. For now I must monitor this situation. The centipedes move quickly to secure their hard-won biomass, dragging away the Croca beast and also the body of the first centipede to perish in the battle. They really don't intend to waste anything, even to the point of consuming their own kind. This isn't really that odd if we consider normal insect behavior. Some species will consume their own dead rather than let those precious nutrients go to waste. This dungeon is a highly competitive environment after all, I can really blame them. Still, as expected of these gross monsters. They run a very slick operation though, I have to give them that. It doesn't take long for them to get their precious biomass back into their own side tunnel, safe from jealous eyes and the predations of their competition. However, if I had a proper mouth I would be grinning the sly grin of a scamming cat. Foolish centipedes. Not as clever as you thought. Chuckling smugly within my mind I snake my way down a stone pillar, moving towards the remains of the centipede tossed away by the Croca during the fight. The final prize is mine. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 16 Currents and Undertows. The waves are a mystery to us. Ever since the very first, during the cataclysm that came to be known as the Rending, when huge surges of monsters were spawned in the dungeon below and tore their way onto the surface in great numbers, we have failed to find the reason why waves of monsters suddenly flood the dungeon. Some of my predecessors have postulated that the dungeon uses the waves as a device to repopulate itself when monster numbers are too low and regular spawns are not sufficient to maintain a healthy population, whatever that may be. There is evidence to suggest that lower monster numbers increases the likelihood of a wave. Yet there are records of waves occurring even when the dungeon is packed to bursting, though it is far more rare for this to happen, to be sure. From the private notes of Alberton, loremaster of the Legionum Abbaci, Lyria. You look fine. I don't feel fine. Do you ever feel fine? Shove off. It's just a meeting. You can't be serious. A formal call to arms before the entire court is a meeting. Titus shrugged. This is the way your dearest aunt wanted it done. Alberton grimaced and tugged at his lace collar once again. You know I don't like having to face my aunt. We really made a brave legionary out of you, didn't we, Alberton? Shove off. That's shove off, Commander. The two men stared at each other for a moment before chuckling awkwardly. Neither of them enjoyed this kind of formal appearance. Titus felt compressed in his court garb, the lace, the buttons, all of it stretched and pinched at his massive shoulders. A large insignia was sewn into his coat above his heart, the symbol of the Legion stitched in blue thread on a deep, black background. Under one thick arm he carried his dress helm, polished to a mirror shine until the metal sparkled in the light. For his part, Alberton was draped in his most elegant robes, his beard had been washed again and then combed before being oiled. The Legion's court auxiliaries, charged with overseeing the organization's interactions with the nobility, had almost had to tie the loremaster down as he howled and protested the grooming. If he was forced to it, Titus would have to admit that watching Alberton get presentable was the only enjoyable part of appearing at court. At present they were stewing in an antechamber outside the throne room, waiting to be announced. After some time an overdressed, wheezing courtier entered to fetch them. They were brought before the carved and gilded entrance doors, where, after a pause they were announced. Commander Titus of the Deep Legion, Loremaster Alberton of the Deep Legion. Boomed the chamberlain. After calling their names the official struck the floor 3 times with his staff, a massive stone shaft with an elaborately carved lion head at the head. The sharp sounds echoed off the vaulted ceiling as the 2 legionary officials stepped forward into the massive hall. To their left and right the courtiers, officials and local power brokers turned to eye their approach, stepping back to clear the center of the floor, allowing them to approach the dais on which the throne stood. Titus had to admit, the light streaming through the large, arched windows and playing across the elaborately carved pillars that supported the ceiling were impressive each time he saw them. Lyria had been prosperous for a long time and the throne room reflected that wealth and power very well. Atop the throne sat a matronly woman, advanced in her years but with the sharp gleam of intelligence still bright in her eye. Queen Verita had ruled with grace and wisdom for more than 30 years, much beloved by her people. The Legion had benefited greatly from her trust in that time.
As they approached the throne, Titus was irritated to see amongst the officials gathered near the dais some people he didn't particularly want to meet. As if detecting his souring mood, Charon, the mercenary union president in Lyria, winked cheekily at him as he approached. Titus could only sigh and glance back at Alberton, who appeared to be completely rigid, his eyes locked to the throne on which Verita sat. He would be completely useless, as usual. When the two men had reached the edge of the dais, they immediately saluted and remained still. "You may be at ease, legionaries," Verita greeted them warmly. "My thanks, Queen Verita," Titus replied formally. The queen turned her attention now to Alberton, who by this point was almost in panic as the eyes of the court focused on him. "Nephew, it is so wonderful to see you again. For too long you have avoided our presence, burying yourself in study. I am very pleased you were able to attend this formal meeting." Titus inwardly sighed. As he suspected, the queen had only called this formal meeting in order to drag Alberton out to visit. The idiotic loremaster was supposed to scrub himself up and come to court every now and again to keep his doting aunt happy. If he'd been skipping out on coming here, then forcing him to attend in full formal garb was possibly the queen subtly punishing her shy nephew. "My honor, your aunt," Alberton mumbled. Seeming satisfied by her wayward relative's discomfort, Verita indicated to the gathered dignitary adjacent to the dais. "We have gathered representatives here of many of our great city's prominent groups to discuss the activity within the dungeon and the course of action to take from this point forth," Veritas said. "To begin, Commander Titus of the Legion." At the queen's announcement, all chatter in the room ceased and Titus cleared his throat to speak. "Mana levels within the dungeon are climbing quickly. According to our projections, we can expect a wave to break in the first strata in as little as 3 days, perhaps 4. In addition to this, legionaries on guard witnessed a monster ant close to the surface. Due to the special nature of this creature, the Legion intends to advance deeper into the dungeon and exterminate the colony. In order to facilitate this level of activity, the Legion is formally requesting military aid from the throne to assist in securing the city from the wave, freeing Legion resources to delve for the creature's nest." At the conclusion of his speech, spoken rapidly with military precision, there was a slight pause before several officials began chuckling openly whilst others frowned in disapproval. Charon, dressed in her official Union leather armor, blue cape expensively cut to flow from her shoulders, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if I may," she bowed towards the throne. "You may speak, Charon," Verita nodded. The mercenary leader stood and straightened her cape and turned to address the throne room. For over 100 years the city of Lyria has prospered under the enlightened rule of Queen Verita and her forebears. The citizens of this city enjoy a peace and prosperity that has seldom been seen, even in the millennia following the Great Cataclysm. Titus' eyes narrowed as Charon continued to speak. He could easily see where this was going to go. In all the time, she continued, the responsibility of managing and policing activity within the dungeon has been placed into the hands of the Deep Legion. Despite their continual, overbearing and disruptive activities, dungeon delving has been an economic cornerstone of Lyria, and through the bravery of the Mercenary Union's membership has this resource been exploited. Charon turned now and gestured towards Titus. "Yet now we see the Legion come begging to our great queen for assistance in defending the city, proving their inability to meet their obligations, whilst jumping at shadows and ants." The queen raised an eyebrow. "Your point being, Charon?" The Mercenary Union president turned and bowed once more to the queen, her silky brown hair falling around her ears. "The Mercenary Union once again petitions the throne to allow the Mercenary Union direct authority over dungeon access, allowing us to properly administer this resource and police our own members. We are supported in our petition by the Associated Merchants Guild." She gestured to one side. One of the few non-humans in the room stepped forward. The merchant was a Brathian, his silver skin containing an aquatic, translucent quality that revealed their people's origins. "Our projections estimate that a restraining of regulations around dungeon exploitation would double profits within 2 years, Your Majesty," the tall humanoid said. Brathian voices had an almost singing quality to them, resonating in the air slightly after they had finished speaking. The queen nodded thoughtfully, then spoke. "You are denied once again, Charon. If you would dismiss the threat represented by an ant, then I highly recommend you brush up on your history. The land our beloved city is founded on once belonged to another kingdom. This queen will not repeat the mistakes of those rulers and underestimate the dungeon. It is not a resource, nor a mine, for all the wealth and resources it brings us. It is a threat, and should always be treated as such." The queen then gestured towards Titus. If you read that history, you will find it was the Deep Legion who liberated this land. For this reason, the rulers of Lyria have placed their trust in them. Corin gracefully bowed towards the throne. Your loyal subject is more concerned with the future prosperity of the citizens than history. The dungeon is to be respected certainly, but not feared. The queen acknowledged her words with a wave of her hand and then stood. The attention of the room was immediately upon her. The crown will place the royal guard at the disposal of the legion for the duration of the wave. Let it be known once again that Lyria places its trust in the legion to oversee the dungeon. Commander, how confident are you that you can exterminate this nest of monsters? Titus saluted, hand over his heart. We are the Legionum Abbaci, the Deep Legion, Your Majesty, Titus said, turning to face Corin. For over 3,000 years, in all of the lands of Pangara, one fact has always been true. Under the ground, nobody can match our strength. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 17 The Deep Roads. That centipede was not a pretty sight. Ripped right in half, with its internal organs spilling out. However, I couldn't pass up the precious opportunity that the hideous remains of the creature represented. Sweet biomass. Using all of my guile, I retrieved the corpse, one half at a time, and returned to the security of my nest for the feast. Holy moly, this is awful eating. This is almost so disgusting I would rather starve. Almost. This is a very key word, almost. Would you like to starve to death, Anthony, or eat this pile of smashed centipede? I would rather eat, but only just. You have gained 1 biomass. Huh. It seems each creature usually contains 1 biomass. Something interesting that I pay more attention to this time is the leftovers. I can't eat every part of these monsters, the fangs, the carapace, teeth, and anything else that is too hard for me to ingest, so what happens to these pieces? After I wait more than an hour, a faint blue glow begins to surround these pieces, and before my very eyes they sink into the ground. What the? Creepy. These leftover materials are being absorbed straight back into the soil. Does that mean this cavern network is absorbing monster pieces from all over? What for? The more I learn, the more questions I have. Well, now for the important business. I currently have 3 biomass and 1 skill point to spend. Firstly, the biomass. Do you wish to improve eyes? This will cost 3 biomass. Here we go. Why yes. Guo. The itch. It's worse than BEFORE. How can it worse? As if an entire swarm of bees has decided my eyeballs were the greatest offense to their species, my eyes light up with spectacularly intense itching. After much scrabbling, rolling and beating my head against the wall, the feeling finally fades away. Phew. Now to the next task, assigning my skill point. Would you like to spend your skill point? Yes, indeed. The usual menu appears and another mystery is quickly solved. Now that my stealth has reached level 5, I was informed that an upgrade had become available, and now, looking my list of skills to purchase, along with dash and the skills I'd seen before, is a new option. Stealth to Advanced Stealth. Cost 1 SP. The upgraded stealth skill further improves the skill holder's passive ability to avoid notice, whilst also greatly increasing this ability when remaining still. Oh ho. So when my skills reach level 5, I can upgrade them to an improved version at the cost of another skill point. Interesting. Of course I will have to select this skill. Not being seen is the same thing as being alive. The new passive seems very handy as well. So now my status is like this. Name: Anthony. Level: 3. Might: 15. Toughness: 12. Cunning: 25. Wool: 18. HP: 30. MP: 0. Skills: Digging level 4, Acid Shot level 3, Grip level 3, Bite level 3, Advanced Stealth level 1, Tunnel Sense level 3. Mutations: Eyes +3, Antennae +2, Acid +1. Species: Hatchling and Worker, Formica. Skill points: 0. Biomass: 0. Finally level 3. I've come so far, I could almost cry. This is my pride, my determination. I will conquer these caves. They will bow to my incredible strength. At some point in the future. For now I need to lay low and continue to scout. In a one-on-one fight with almost anything I'm going to flat out lose. However, now that I have advanced stealth, I feel more confident exploring the shaft, heading deeper into this place. I wasn't able to detect a pheromone trail in the cavern, and although I haven't been able to scout it properly, I can't deny that I'm very curious to see what lies down below. If I didn't have my new upgrades to my eyes and stealth, I probably wouldn't chance this. Time to witness what lies in the depths. Giving my antennae a quick clean, got to keep them shiny, I make my way out of the nest and back toward the shaft. Okay, this is a little tricky. Moving directly downwards still makes me a little nervous. It isn't something that humans can have a chance to do after all. Walking directly down a wall is one thing, but walking down a black hole where I can't see the bottom is another entirely. Steady now, steady. Moving slowly, I start to make my way down the shaft. Now that I think of it, it's actually quite bright here in this tunnel. The pulsing veins of soft blue light run the length of the walls here, illuminating the rock in their glow. Although not as bright as regular daylight or a light from my own world, it is a well-lit environment compared to what I've experienced so far in this place. As I continue to descend, the walls pulse every minute or so, the light waxing and waning in intensity, giving the shaft a very organic feel. Also, it's hard to detect, but very slightly I think the light is becoming brighter the further down I go. After cautiously climbing down 50 meters, I see something that surprises me greatly. What the heck is this? Growing out of the wall, directly atop a light vein, is a small tuft of something similar to blue grass, except in the center of the small mound of plant matter is a stalk atop which is a tiny blue crystal flower. There is plant life here in these caves. How? There isn't any sunlight at all. Perhaps these veins in the walls are able to provide some kind of sustenance. The blue flower is extremely small, but by shoving my ant face right up to it I can see it is exquisite in its detail. Just beautiful. Leaving my discovery behind, I continue to move down the tunnel only to discover the small patches of grass with their accompanying flower are appearing more and more often. I also manage to detect another welcome surprise. Pheromones. My antennae start waggling like crazy as I detect the scent of the chemical trail left by my colony. My clan, my tribe, my people, insects. I have chosen the correct path. Clearly the scout from my colony originated down here somewhere and pursued the thieves who raided our nest higher into the caves. What a brave scout, how diligent, how bold. Giving his all for the colony, just as I shall when I get home. Excited by my find, I continue on my way downwards. Another 40 meters down and the shaft comes to an abrupt end. Instead, a narrow tunnel branches to the left. This tunnel is not at all straight. Jagged corners and bends come one after the other, slowing my progress to a crawl. I refuse to barrel blindly around corners in this place. There could be more spiders of all sorts of horrible things hiding. Especially since I'm worried that the monsters about the place will be stronger down here. I crawl around another corner and the tunnel abruptly opens wide in front of me. What the hell is this? Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 18 The World Below. Spreading out before my very small eyes is an impossible vista. A huge underground world of incredible size, the entire floor covered in strange, magical plant life. Bizarre-looking trees and giant mushrooms loom below me, casting deep shadows over a forest floor covered in grasses and plants similar to the strange crystal flower I saw in the shaft. The entire scene is suffused with the blue light I've seen in the tunnels before. The plants themselves have the creeping veins of light twisting through their forms. As I watch, the entire scene pulses, just like I'd seen in the tunnel walls. This is insane. Gandalf, what is going here? How can an underground space of this scale exist? I can't even see the other side. The roof looks like it's 60 meters high. I didn't expect to see this flourishing ecosystem. This place must be absolutely crawling with monsters. The thought grips my little ant heart. Somewhere in this massive cavern my colony exists, or perhaps they are even further away than this and the scout passed through this area on its way higher up. At any rate, I somehow have to explore this space. I can't help but feel depressed. The vista in front of me is exotic and exciting, but I can't appreciate it whilst I'm in a position of not knowing the first thing about it. In such a massive open space, what size could the monsters have grown to? How much biomass could they pile up in a flourishing area like this? I have no idea. Gah. Firm your resolve, Anthony. You are going to make it. You will conquer this space and reunite with your colony. However, first I will retreat to higher up and get some levels. Don't look at me like that. This is clearly the sensible choice. I need to raise my level and gain more mutations before I'm prepared to explore this space. I will conquer the known before I attack the unknown. Back up we go. I retreat up the shaft and regroup back in my nest. I'm feeling pressured by time now. If my suspicions are correct, then the main tunnel up here is connected to the cavern I was in earlier, which is now fully occupied by soldiers. They could come down in this direction at any time, so I have to stay safe, assuming that they will. Once they do come down, I won't have access to the easier XP and biomass I can gather from there and will be forced into the open space below without any further preparation. Taking all this into consideration, I have to move fast. It has become necessary to throw some of my earlier caution to the wind and make bold moves. Without XP and biomass I won't survive if I push deeper into this place, and I can't take my time acquiring said XP and biomass as I'd like to. Time for this ant to go into battle. My mind made up, I zip back out to the main tunnel and immediately stealth up to the ceiling, antennae waving in the air as I cast my eyes about to spot prey. If I want to maximize my biomass gains, then I should be sure to target the creatures I haven't been able to consume yet, ensuring I get the bonus point from Gandalf, which means I would need to try and hunt one of the mollusk creatures, the tail rat, and if possible one of the croca beasts. I have no idea how the hell I would hunt one of those giant crocodiles. They are so much more frightening than everything else around here. Looking about, I notice one of the slug creatures is sliding along on the wall to my left. I don't have 2 days to sit around starving myself as I obsessively study the creature. I'm going to have to move quickly. Entering shark mode, I sneak up behind the hideous snail creature, making sure to avoid standing in its slime trail. I keep a constant eye on my surroundings as I do, not wanting get caught out by anything as I'm hunting. Up close the creature is even less appealing, probably twice my body length. They are very sizable, a long slimy body topped with brightly colored spines that seem to grow organically from the creature's back. I absolutely won't touch those. 2 stalks poke out from the front of the monster's head, either eyes or antennae on the end, I'm not sure. They could be a vulnerable point to attack later. As I draw closer to the creature, I'm able to notice something else. The body constantly releases a thick covering of mucus, presumably to help grease the path of the creature to increase its speed, but I suspect also for another reason. Backing away from the slug slightly, I nip behind a rock and then quickly give it a surprise blast of acid. And nothing happens. The monster continues to slide along the wall, seemingly totally oblivious to my sneak attack. I thought as much. That thick layer of mucus is protecting the creature from my acid and will do exactly the same thing if I try to bite it with my jaws. I'd probably just get stuck. Damn slug. Of all the defensive measures you could employ, you had to use a slime barrier. Could you make this any more disgusting for me? If that's the way you want to play, fine then. I will show you the power of a human mind. Actually, this is a trick that even ants on Earth are able to do. As the slug continues to slide its way along the wall, I quickly scout around for some dirt. Grabbing a mandible full, I sneak up behind the slug and place the chunk of soil on its side before immediately backing off, looking for a reaction. Nothing. It isn't clear the slug can even feel what I'm doing. Hey. Moving quickly, I repeat the process 4 more times, piling up dirt on and around the same place towards the rear of the slug on its side. The dirt quickly grows claggy and thick, covered in the oozing slime, soaking in it. Once the soil has become a sticky ball of yuck, I grab chunks of it with my mandibles and peel it away from the body of the slug, then replace it with fresh dirt. Repeating the process for 10 minutes, I manage to soak away the defensive slime layer covering this one area while the slug continues to show no reaction. Let's see what happens this time. I retreat from the slug once more and find a sheltered spot before turning to present the B zone and firing acid once again. As soon as the acid impacts the slug's delicate spongy flesh, the creature shudders with surprise. Felt it that time, did you, slug? How about another shot? Pow. Nailed it again. The slug is visibly in pain now as its body writhes from the burning. Actual steam is rising from the sticky flesh of the monster as the acid continues to eat away. Why, yuck. Rearing back with its front half, the slug lifts its head from the wall with a sticky plop and turns its head towards the source of the damage. Detached from the wall, I can see the creature's foot, the undulant muscle that snails and slugs use to move, writhing and wriggling in the air. The long stalks, far longer than what you would expect to see on a slug, wave wildly in the air, seeking the foe. In that moment my danger senses start tingling and a thought flashes through my mind at light speed. How does one of these slow slug monsters get food up here? There aren't any plants, so how do they hunt monsters? No sooner does the thought occur to me than I dart out of cover and scramble away from the slug as fast my little legs will carry me. Turning back I can see the slug withdrawing in on itself, almost compressing its raised front half, before out of the slime a mouth opens wide, revealing a hideous maw of fangs. Bursting forward like a spring, the slug blasts out a massive spray of thick mucus, covering the rock wall behind me in a noxious goo that immediately starts bubbling and eating away at the stone. Whoa, sticky acid. By the looks of it that acid is much stronger than mine too. Without pausing again I continue my retreat, moving up to the ceiling and getting lost amidst the rocks before I turn back to check on the slug. The monster is clearly enraged now, its eyes sweeping the rocks as it reorients itself and moves in my direction, its surprisingly vicious looking maw gnawing at the air. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 19 The Harves. This is clearly one ticked off slug. I really wish I had considered what I would do if the monster turned out to be an acid-spitting nightmare of death. Too late to weep ant tears, since ants can't cry anyway. Only thing to do is finish off this slug. The problem is that I have a limited supply of acid within me, usually only 3 or 4 shots worth at a time. I haven't managed to time exactly how long it takes to regenerate each blast yet, so after firing one more round I won't know how long it will take until another becomes available. Since I can't really attack the slug with my mandibles, the acid is my only option. Somehow I have to land a decisive blow with my final acid attack. I can think of one strategy, but I really don't want to have to take such a risk. Why have you forced me into this situation, Gandalf? If I wasn't in such a hurry I'd never even consider this. Gritting my mandibles I begin to move towards the slug, trying to keep my profile low by moving between uneven folds in the rock wall. Grip has reached level 4. Finally. How long do I have to scramble about on walls and ceilings before this skill will level up? Perhaps it only really considers time I spend fighting whilst on walls. No time to worry about it now, battle is at hand. The slug is moving through its own acid now, sliding over the adhesive muck without taking any damage, probably protected by its slime barrier. I think the monster usually hunts by immobilizing and burning its foe with this stuff before closing in for the feast. Here goes nothing. I've managed to close to within 10 meters of the slug. I'm sure it's seen me moving closer but probably hasn't been able to pinpoint me. Seemingly unfazed, the slug continues to advance towards my location. I take a deep breath and then attempt my strategy. Leaping to a standing position, I proudly present my backside to the slug, waggling it about in front of the creature's disbelieving eye stalks. Get an eyeful, slug. Like what you see. Apparently even a monstrous slug creature over 2 meters long is unsure how to react to an ant wiggling its bum at it. The creature pauses as shocked before rearing back with its toothy mouth wide open. Now, fire. Acid shot has reached level 4. A shot so perfect even Gandalf approves. The sizzling liquid erupts out of my gaster at tremendous speed, arcing through the air in a solid jet of death. The slug has compressed its body, preparing to lunge forward and fire another blast when my own acid splashes directly into its face and crucially, straight down the monster's gullet. The reaction is immediate. The slug contorts itself in response, falling off the wall and slapping wetly against the floor where it continues to writhe as the acid burns away inside it. The rocky protrusions along its back scrape and scratch against the stone with loud rasping noises. Hopefully nothing is drawn to investigate. A flawless plan. I'd hoped by baiting the monster I'd be able to fire a critical shot inside its mouth, which I'd figured would be the only way I could deal fatal damage with one shot of acid, since the rest of the creature is still protected by its slime barrier. I continue to obverse my victim as it suffers under the effects of my attack. I hope I dealt fatal damage. You have defeated level 4 Alcyonium slug. You have gained XP. Triumph. The slug has finally ceased its writhing and gone limp, a 2-meter-long sludgy picture of disgusting mollusk. Now for the task of consuming my prey. Now that I think about it, do I really have to eat that? If an ant could vomit I'd be on the verge of it now. Don't be stupid, Anthony. People on Earth ate mollusks like snails all the time. You can't afford to turn up your nose at any source of biomass, so stop whining and dig into that slug. Approaching the slug, I take note of its slime layer. The creature isn't producing slime anymore, but most parts of it are still coated in the stuff. I'll have to remove it before I can eat the whole thing. Using more dirt to soak away the slime, I clean off one half before I start to eat it. I only manage to get halfway through before I become full. This is one big slug. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Alcyonium slug. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Alcyonium slug unlocked. Alcyonium slug. Coral slug. This creature uses powerful acid to attack its foes, before wary of the poisonous spines on its back. You have gained 1 biomass. Even more disgusting that I mean, the texture alone. I'm not able to consume the rest of the slug immediately, so I quickly dig a hole in the wall and bury it before returning to my nest. I can't rest on my laurels now, even if I did just have survive a nasty fight. Time is limited and my pace has to be high. Risks can't be avoided right now. I use my new biomass to upgrade my acid, my primary weapon, to +2, and after enduring the mutation I return to the cavern to scout for more prey. I can vaguely feel the acid inside my acid gland building up again slowly. I think at the moment I only have 1 shot, not enough to take on a creature, so I'll have to continue scouting for now. The improvement to my grip skill is scarcely noticeable. I can tell that it's slightly easier to carry my weight as I crawl about on the ceiling, but that seems to be it. Any advantage at all is well worth it, I suppose. I wonder what grip will advance into once it reaches level 5. You won't cop out and just call it advanced grip, will you, Gandalf? Once more moving quietly, I begin to scout up and down the tunnel, searching for opportunities. I can see monsters moving in small groups here and there. A pair of lizard hounds are sniffing about, and a group of claw centipedes similarly snooping, sliding around rocks and up onto the walls, looking for an opportunity. Out of the corner of my eye I happen to see a flicker of movement, and I turn just in time to see a familiar shape ducking in between 2 stone outcroppings on the wall. If it isn't my old friend the thorn lizard. I'm almost feeling nostalgic for the very first hunt. I haven't seen another one of these creatures since the first one at the water pool. Well then, the next prey is decided. I can reuse some elements of my first plan for this attack. I'll use the wall terrain and my acid to battle the creature. I won't try and prepare a trap again. I'll battle it head on with acid and mandibles to see how I last. Approaching cautiously, I try to position myself above where I last saw the lizard and try to track it down. Using my improved antennae and eyesight, I'm eventually able to spot it tucked up against the rock, resting. My biomass investments are continuing to pay off. Having located the creature, I slowly scrabble about, looking for footholds as I position myself for the shot I want to take. I only have enough juice in the tank for 1 shot, possibly 2. If I want to succeed in this hunt, then I need to make it count. I shift across the roof to the other side of the lizard, opening up the angles to its face. Next, I painstakingly creep, 1 leg at a time, forward to try and get as close as I can. With only 1 shot, it needs to count. Since the lizard is resting, I'm able to sneak within 5 meters of the target, moving with such incredible patience it takes me almost 15 minutes to close this distance. It takes a lot of concentration to focus on being still for this much time. I'm exhausted by the time I get into position. My last fight was too risky. This time I want to improve my odds as much as possible. After slowly turning and present the blast zone towards my target, I tilt my head and take careful aim. Boom. Bullseye. At such short range against a non-moving target, I'm able to land my acid directly onto the face of the thorn lizard. The creature snarls and growls before shutting its eyes and trying to use its claws to swipe the stinging acid off its face. Taking advantage of the distracted target, I close in quickly from above. The creature's long spines swing wildly through the air as it sweeps its pained head through the air, tries to dislodge the acid. I approach with caution, trying to avoid getting stabbed and poisoned before I lunge forward with a vicious bite. My mandibles aren't a fantastic weapon at all. As a worker ant, they are intended for digging, shifting dirt and holding onto stuff, not piercing or cutting. For that reason, the teeth on the inside of each jaw are very flat, not able to rip or tear into creatures. Some ants, like bull ants, have nasty-looking mandibles, long and sharp, whilst others, like the trap-jaw ant, have strong locking muscles that can coil like a spring before slamming the jaws shut with tremendous force. Without any such potential, my bites are more like squeezing the poor creature repeatedly. I'm sure it's annoying, but each bite isn't doing a whole lot for me. In which case I will make up for any deficiency with quantity. Take that, and that. Darting forward over and over again, I crush the blinded creature's head within my mandibles over and over again. Bite has reached level 4. Another level 4 skill. Excellent. The thorn lizard tries to blindly stab forward in response to my aggression, trying to catch me with its nasty spines, but the creature is too slow and its moves too telegraphed. Without a solid idea of my position, it's forced into large movements that are too easy to see coming. Eventually the lizard is defeated. You have defeated level 3 thorn lizard. You have gained XP. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. 20 Offense is defense. Quiet was something Commander Titus had found very difficult to come across over the last few days. This expedition had come as surprise, well outside of the usual schedule, and an endless number of things needed organizing before departure. The Queen providing her own personal guards had been unexpected but helpful. The Legion had been expecting regular front-line soldiers to plug the gaps, worthy soldiers to be sure, but far from the quality and discipline of an outfit like the Guards. With their assistance, most preparations were expedited the second they showed up in their burnished, decorative armor, polished to a mirror shine, and started demanding things hustle along in the name of the Queen. Titus brushed his hands along his desk, feel the smooth stone surface. Incredible stuff. Stonewood grew just like a tree, straight out of the ground deep into the dungeon, but was solid stone the whole way through. The flecked, dark texture of the stone had always pleased him, to the point he'd hauled this slab back to surface on his own back in order to fashion this desk. His hand drew down to the underside of the desk, right next to the wooden drawers that had been attached beneath the surface. He pressed for a moment and waited. There was a soft click and a small rectangular section of stone began to rise on the surface of the desk, its seams invisible just a second before. Using one hand, Titus lifted the section up to reveal a small fabric-lined compartment beneath. Inside were 6 small glass vials, capped with twisted silver carved with tiny but precise runes. 2 of the vials were empty, but the other 4 contained a brilliantly glowing liquid, the blue light instantly filling the dark office. With a sigh, Titus began to roll his sleeve up his arm. When the sleeve moved past his elbow, intricate script began to appear, stamped onto his skin. Concentric circles of strange symbols, not inked onto the skin but imprinted in some way that left them pulsing with a semblance of life. Taking one of the vials, Titus placed the silver cap directly on the center of the network of symbols. Slowly at first, then with growing speed, the circular designs on his arm began to rotate and emit light. As they gathered speed, the liquid began to drain out of the vial. Faster and faster they span until the sparkling fluid was completely gone. Unclenching his teeth, Titus returned the vial to case and fixed his sleeves. He then carefully returned the case to its compartment inside his desk and replaced the cover, which slowly sank into position until the seams were once more invisible. The commander grimaced. Hopefully he wouldn't need another one of those for a while. As always, however, the injection lifted a weight off his shoulders that he hadn't quite realized was there. As if he'd been grinding his teeth and only now did he stop and realize just how tight his jaw had been. Enough of these distractions, thought Titus, time to get back to where a good legionary belongs. Abruptly standing, he moved to the corner of the room where his oversized battle axe rested. Using a single hand, he hefted the huge mass of metal and threw the haft over his shoulder. He'd have to get the old thing sharpened today if he wanted to get it prepped in time for action. Do you have any idea why they are bringing those guys down with us, Mirren? Donnellan asked. Mirren shook her head. She was also puzzled as to why the ragged group of a dozen prisoners, each of them sentenced to death, were being escorted into the dungeon by a squad of senior legionaries. The 2 trainees had finally reached level 30 in their respective jobs, Mirren as a ranger and Donnellan as a fire mage. When a legionary reached level 30, they were able to be promoted to full legionary status. However, the induction ceremony took place deep in the dungeon. Mirren was excited to be finally inducted but also a bit anxious. None of the trainees had any idea what the ceremony was or why it had been done deep in the dungeon, and the full legionaries who did know never said a word. Not for the first time she was struck by exactly how much common people didn't know about the Deep Legion. A private army that had existed for 3,000 years, since civilization had been brought to the brink of destruction when the dungeon first opened. The Legion was something everyone had heard of, but knew very little about. She firmed her resolve. Soon the legend's secrets would be her secrets, and she would keep them well. The two of them were currently stationed in what the trainees liked to call Noob Cave. The monsters that usually occupied this cavern were the weakest one could find in the dungeon, making it the perfect learning ground for newcomers. Many would-be dungeon mercs were still hurt here, no matter how many times they were told that dungeon monster levels are totally different to monsters on the surface. They would never listen. A level 1 monster down here could easily crush a level 10 on the surface. Those stupid jocks were a constant thorn in the legend's side. Everyone wants to level up, hunt monster cores and valuable components for profit, but spare a thought for the Legion rescue teams who had to constantly bail them out when they bit off more than they could chew. Staging for the expedition had been going on all day and all night. Supplies had been brought into the cavern and lowered through a secret shaft in the wall. Donnellan had told her how the earth mages had undone their illusions and shifted the rock walls to reveal supply elevator, complete with rope pulley system, that allowed for materials and supplies to be lowered deeper into the dungeon, to be retrieved at another concealed location when the expedition reached it. Are you prepared for the expedition, trainees? A confident voice said. Recognizing the sound of Tribune Aurelia, Donnellan and Mirren immediately snapped to attention. Our armor and equipment has been checked and polished, Tribune. Donnellan hastily reported. The experienced Tribune chuckled in the face of his enthusiasm. I wasn't talking about your equipment, trainee. Every legionary keeps that in top shape at all times. Her blue eyes flashed icily. Any soldier under her command would quickly regret it if they didn't keep their gear in top shape. I was talking about up here. She raised one hand to tap her temple with one finger. The dungeon is a dangerous place, even for old hands like me and the commander. The reason we live to get this old is because we don't underestimate it. You two will be promoted when we get down below. That is a great occasion, one you'll remember forever, but don't let it distract you from our task. We won't, Tribune. The two snapped out quick salutes once again. Tribune, how much longer until we advance into the dungeon? Mirren asked. The older woman shook her head. Eager to get started, are you? I don't blame you, I was young once too. Shouldn't be more than a few hours, then we'll start sweeping the upper area clean before we set up the forward camp in the forest expanse. Please go to read the latest chapters for free.